Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. I'm Mackie Hall, and after building this huge Animate tutorial, I wanted to get back to the basics and build something simple and just a little bit cool. And in the process, I wanted to demonstrate what you could do with basic tools when you bring them together. This is a two-part tutorial where we're going to build this, and then we're going to build this, and in the process, we are going to learn this. You'll learn how to use layers to your advantage. You'll use type on path on a closed shape. You'll learn about selecting and sizing type. You'll create and refine basic shapes. You'll level up on the rotate tool. You'll refine type paths with the scale tool. And you'll learn the basic use of the Pathfinder tool. In our next step, we'll level things up by adding a gradient. And in the process, we're going to learn the basic use of the gradient tool as well as using the expand tool. Did I mention we're going to build a badass logo? Let's go. All right, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new document. We'll make sure our new document has a width of 1,000 points, a height of 1,000 points, a single artboard, and the RGB color mode. Let's go ahead and create that. All right, before we get started, let's go ahead and mention a few things. The first thing we're going to mention is that we are using the Essentials Classic layout. To change to Essentials Classic, all you need to do is select your workspace icon and select Essentials Classic from the top right. Next thing we're going to mention is that we are using Smart Guides. To activate or to see if you're using Smart Guides, just go to View, select Smart Guides, or select Control U. Last thing I want to mention is that we're going to use the bottom center of the page to offer tips, tricks, highlight key command recommendations, and hotkey recommendations. All right, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a black background on our page. The way we're going to do that is we're going to grab our rectangle tool and click anywhere on our page. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to set our rectangle size to 1,000 points wide, 1,000 points tall, and we'll click OK. Note that our shape is the same size as our page. Once that's been set, let's go ahead and align our page to center horizontally and vertically. Note that if your align elements are not visible, all you need to do is go to Window, Align, or select Shift F7 to open up the Align window. Now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and set our rectangle fill to black and our stroke to transparent. Very good. Now that we've got that all set, let's go ahead and set our layer and lock it down. We'll do that by clicking on our layer icon on the right side. Let's double click on layer 1 and rename it background. We'll hit enter or click anywhere on our layers window to deselect. And then let's go ahead and lock our layer down. We'll do that by clicking the lock icon right next to our eyeball or our visibility icon. Now that we've set our black background, let's go ahead and create a new layer. This layer is going to contain the inner and outer circles of our logo. With that in mind, we'll create a new layer. We'll double click on this and we'll call this new layer Circles. Hit enter once again to deselect. And then let's go ahead and add in our circles. First thing we're going to do is we're going to click and hold our rectangle tool, and we'll select our ellipse tool. Next thing we'll do is we'll click anywhere on our artboard. Let's create a circle that's 500 points wide by 500 points tall. There you go. Once our circle has been set, let's go ahead and change our stroke to white and our fill to transparent. Once that's done, let's increase our stroke width to 8 points. Let's go ahead and grab our selection tool and deselect. That looks pretty good. Let's reselect and align it to center. We'll click on it, and again, using our align tool, we'll align horizontally and vertically just like that. Let's go ahead and deselect. Let's add our inner circle. Again, we'll grab our ellipse tool. We'll select it, we'll click anywhere on our artboard, and let's create a circle that's 350 points wide by 350 points tall. There you go. One more time, let's align it horizontally to center. and let's align it vertically to center just like that. Grab our selection tool, let's deselect, and that is exactly what we want. Let's go ahead and lock our layer down and create a new layer for our artwork. We'll do that once again by selecting our layers window. Let's lock our circles layer. Let's create a new layer. This time around, we'll call this center art. We'll double click, right, center art. We'll hit enter to deselect, and that looks good right there. Let's reselect our layer, and let's set up our center art. What we want to do, as you can see, is we want to create a snowflake-like shape. We'll get started doing that by grabbing and holding our ellipse tool, and we'll select our rectangle tool. We'll click anywhere on our artboard, and let's create a new rectangle that's 300 points wide by 70 points tall. Hit OK, and that's the shape we want right there. Now that we've got our shape, let's go ahead and set our fill to white and our stroke to transparent. Once we've got that, let's set our ribbon effect, and when we do that, we'll need to add a pair of anchor points on each side of our rectangle. We'll do that by grabbing our pen tool. Again, we're keeping our rectangle selected, and then we're going to hover over the left side until we intersect while aligning to center, just like that. We'll click on that side of our rectangle, and then we're going to move that point in 50 points. The way we'll do that is we'll hold our Shift key, and we're going to hit our left directional key 5 times. Note, Shift clicking moves our element in 10-point increments. Looks good right there. Let's go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other side. Once again, we'll keep our shape selected. We'll hover our pen tool over that right side until it intersects and is at center right there. Next thing we'll do is we'll click, we'll drag off our shape, hold our Shift key and arrow to the left 5 times or 50 points. Looks perfect. Let's grab our selection tool, let's deselect, and that's exactly the shape we want. Now that we've got our shape, we want to create our snowflake by duplicating that shape twice over 360 degrees. The way we're going to do that is we'll select our shape. Let's double click on our rotate tool. And instead of trying to break down 360 divided by 3, which is a fairly easy equation, we're going to just write that equation under angle. We're going to do it as follows: 360 divided by 3. And instead of clicking OK, what we're going to do is we're going to select copy. It's going to copy our original shape just like that. And to duplicate that move, we are going to press Control D. Note what happens. It duplicates that last move. That's the shape we want. So now let's grab our selection tool and let's unify these 3 shapes. The way we'll do that is we'll drag across our 3 shapes just like that. Let's go to Window and select Pathfinder. You can also press Shift Control F9. And with our Pathfinder window open, under Shape Modes, we are going to select Unite. Take a look at what happens to our shape. Note straight away that our 3 shapes have merged into a single shape. That's exactly what we want. Now that we've done that, let's continue to edit our shape by making the outside part of our shape 8 points thick, having an 8-point break, and then having a fill containing the rest of our original shape. The way we're going to do that is with our shape still selected, we are going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path, and then we're going to change our offset to -8. That matches the stroke on our outside circles. Looks good right there. Let's click OK. And let's do that one more time. Again, we're creating the fill of our shape this time around. Once again, we'll select Object, Path, Offset Path, and once again, we'll offset to -8. This should be set as the default because our last move was just that. Click OK. And those are the exact shapes that we want. However, we want that break between our outside shape and our inside shape. The way we do that is with our selection tool still selected, we'll select our outside shape, and then we'll hold our Shift key, and select our middle shape just like that. We're going to go back to Pathfinder and select minus front, which is right next to our Unite tool. That's exactly what we want. Now the only thing left to do is to merge our remaining two shapes. That means we'll select our outside shape, we're going to hold our Shift key and select our inside shape. Once those shapes are selected, we'll select Unite again under Shape Modes. Let's go ahead and deselect and let's test our shape by clicking on it again and seeing if we're selecting all of the shape in our new art. Note that we are. Next thing we need to do is let's go ahead and take our shape and rotate it 90 degrees so that it looks more like a snowflake. We'll do that by making sure our shape is still selected. We'll double click our rotate tool and let's set our rotate angle to 90 degrees. Let's hit enter. That is exactly the shape that we want. It looks perfect. So let's move it into place. We're going to do that by aligning it to center both horizontally and vertically once again. We'll click to align center. That looks good right there. I think we're set with our center art. With that in mind, let's go ahead and deselect our shape. It looks terrific. That looks good. Let's go ahead and lock our layer. And now let's create our type layers. The way we're going to do that is we're going to create a new layer, add another type circle, and then we're going to use type on path to add both our top type and our bottom type. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's create a new layer, and this new layer will be named top type to start. Let's hit enter to deselect. And now let's go ahead and get started with our top circle. Where we're going to do that once again, let's click and hold on our rectangle tool. We'll select our ellipse tool. And then let's go back onto our artboard and let's hover until we arrive at the center of our piece. Note that once we arrive to center, Illustrator tells us so. Now that we've done that, let's click and then let's hold onto our Shift key to create a circle. And then let's hold our Alt key to have that circle expand from center just like that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to drag our circle out between our outside circle and inside circle. That looks good right there. And then let's make sure that our stroke is white and our fill is transparent. Let's go ahead and deselect. We'll grab our selection tool and deselect and check. And that looks pretty good right there. Let's go ahead and add our type. Note that when we type on circle, we're going to be using our type on path tool. And because we want our type aligned center to top, what we need to do is we need to start our path at the very bottom of our circle. That way, when we center our type, it centers at the top of our artwork. Let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to select our circle just like that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to click and hold on to our type tool. Then we're going to select type on path. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to hover over our bottommost anchor point and we'll click on it. Once we're done with that, let's go ahead and write the words dimension in all caps. Once we're done with that, let's select all of our type. Let's change our fill color to white and our stroke to transparent. Once we're done with that, let's center our type. All right, let's change our character style to Modern Society. We'll click on that. Now, if you don't have Modern Society, it is available for free download at pixelsurplus.com. Once we've got our type set, let's go ahead and change our type size to 64. Let's deselect. The type and type size is exactly what we're looking for. However, note that our type's baseline is aligning to our circle. We need to change that so that it aligns to center. The way we do that is with our circle still selected, let's go ahead and double click on our type on path tool and note that our type on path options window pops up. We're going to leave the effects alone and instead we're going to select align to path and we're going to select center. Let's go ahead and preview that. That is exactly what we want right there. Let's click OK. Now note two things. The first is that our type is slightly off center. It's pushing towards the outside circle and away from the inside circle. We want to make sure that is centered. The next thing I want to mention is that our type is tracked too close together. So we want to stretch that out just a little bit. With that in mind, the first thing we're going to do is let's make our type on path circle slightly smaller so that our type is centered between the two circles. We're going to do that by making sure that our type circle is still selected, and then let's double click on our scale tool. With our scale tool open, let's go ahead and scale it down. We'll start with 99%. And that's slightly too small. So what we're going to do is we're going to change our scale to 99.5. Tab off it. And that looks pretty good right there. Let's click OK. The next thing we want to do is we want to stretch our type out or track it out. Where we're going to do that is we're going to look at our character window on the right side of our page. If you don't have that, you can always go to Window, Type, and select Character. You can also press Control-T, and that will bring up the character window just like that. With our character window up, let's go ahead and change the tracking to 100 points. Let's grab our selection tool, deselect, and that looks pretty good. With that in mind, we're set with the top type. Let's go ahead and open up our layers. Let's lock our top type. And let's create a new layer called bottom type, and we'll set our bottom type. We'll double click on layer 5, right bottom type. Now that our new layer is selected, let's go ahead and set our path circle one more time. Once again, we'll click on our ellipse tool. We'll hover over center just like that. Let's hold our Shift key and Alt key to make a circle and to expand from center. And let's drag our circle out so that it is between the outside and inside bounding circles. Once done, let's go ahead and make sure our stroke is white and our fill is transparent. Let's go ahead and deselect. That looks perfect right there. With that in mind, let's go ahead and select our circle and let's set our type. So we'll do that by making sure our select tool is still selected. We'll click on that. Let's grab our type on path tool. And because we want our type centered on the bottom, we're going to click on the top anchor point of our type circle. Once we've clicked on it, let's go ahead and write our bottom words. And that will be Snowboard Company, which will be abbreviated. Let's make sure that our caps are selected, and let's write it down, and let's write the words in all caps. Once we've done that, let's select all of our type. Let's double click on our fill, and let's make sure that it is all white. Once done, let's make sure our stroke is transparent, and let's deselect to preview our type. Note straight away that we've got a few things that we need to change. First, our type is upside down. And second, note that our type baseline is aligning to our circle. Third, notice that our bottom type is too big. So let's change all of those elements. Once again, we're going to grab our selection tool and we're going to click on our circle. With our circle selected, let's double click on our type on path tool. And under effect, let's go ahead and select flip. Let's preview that by clicking on our preview button. That's a good start right there. Next, let's go ahead and change our align to path tool from baseline to center once again. That looks pretty good. Let's click OK. And note again that our type is simply too big. It is competing with both the word dimension and with our center artwork. With that in mind, let's go ahead and select our bottom words. We'll triple click. And then let's change our type size from 64 all the way down to 42. Let's go ahead and grab our selection tool. Let's deselect. And that looks perfect. One more thing worth mentioning is that because I'm married to 64-point type on top, I want to ensure that the type is that exact size. If we look over at our layers panel, we'll note that our bottom type is still unlocked and our top type is locked. Since it is that way, we won't be able to access our top type. The way we access our top type, let's lock our bottom type. Let's unlock our top type, and then let's select our type path. We'll do that by grabbing our selection tool. We'll select our binding circle. Then let's grab our type on path tool, and let's double click on the word dimension. Note that our type size is 63.68. Let's go ahead and change that to 64 points. Click OK. And that sizes our type back up to 64 points. Let's go ahead and deselect our shape entirely. And that is exactly what we want. Let's go ahead and lock our top type layer. Let's save our piece, and we are done. All right, you've completed part 1 of our tutorial. In part 2, we're going to level things up by adding a gradient. Be sure to get started with that next. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below. Otherwise, throw me a like. I'd really appreciate that. Otherwise, subscribe. I'd appreciate that just a little bit more. We'll see you next time. See you.